Paige never imagined that spilling coffee on someone's shoes would change her entire life. But then again, she never imagined meeting a man like Julian Markovsky either. It started on a Tuesday morning, the kind where the city felt too loud and her tips from the night before felt too small. She was working the breakfast shift at Meridian, one of those upscale hotel restaurants where businessmen closed deals over Eggs Benedict and tourists pretended they belonged. The place had marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and a manager who believed smiling through exhaustion was a job requirement. She'd been carrying a full tray, 3 cappuccinos and a latte, when someone stepped back from their table without looking. The tray tipped. Hot coffee splashed across expensive leather shoes. Paige's heart stopped. She looked up, already forming an apology, and found herself staring into the coldest gray eyes she'd ever seen. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her rent. For 3 seconds, he just looked at her. No expression, no anger, nothing. Then he glanced down at his ruined shoes, back up at her face, and did something unexpected. He smiled. Not a warm smile, more like he found something darkly amusing about the situation. "I'm so sorry," Paige stammered. "Already. I'll get this cleaned up right away, It's fine," he said. His voice was deep, accented. Russian, maybe. Accidents happen. But his eyes never left her face, and something about his attention made her skin prickle. She cleaned up the mess as quickly as possible, hyper-aware of him watching her every move. When she finally escaped to the kitchen, her hands were shaking. Her coworker Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just clumsy," Paige said, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, even if she couldn't explain what. The man left without finishing his breakfast. Paige thought that would be the end of it. She was wrong. He came back the next day, same table, same time. He ordered black coffee and sat there for an hour, reading something on his phone, occasionally glancing up when she passed. It unnerved her. On the 3rd day, he spoke to her. "What's your name?" Paige hesitated. Everything about this man screamed danger, but not in the obvious way. It was in the way other customers gave his table a wide berth. The way the manager personally came over to check if everything was satisfactory. The way 2 men in dark suits sat 3 tables away, never eating, just watching. "Paige," she finally answered. "Paige," he repeated, like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. "I'm Julian." She should have walked away. Should have kept it professional, but there was something magnetic about him, something that made her want to know more despite every instinct telling her to run. "You come here a lot," she said, attempting casual conversation. "I do now," he replied, and the way he said it made it clear he was talking about her. That's when Paige started noticing things. The expensive watch, the way people deferred to him. The phone calls he took in Russian, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. She wasn't naive. She'd grown up in the city, worked every kind of job since she was 16. She knew what money looked like when it came from places banks didn't talk about. But knowledge and wisdom were different things, and despite knowing better, Paige found herself looking forward to his visits. It was a Saturday night, 3 weeks after the coffee incident, when things shifted. The restaurant was packed. Paige was handling a difficult table, a group of businessmen who'd had too much to drink. One of them, red-faced and loud, kept grabbing at her wrist every time she tried to set down a plate. "Come on, sweetheart, smile for me," he slurred. "You'd be so much prettier if you smiled." Paige pulled her hand back firmly. "Sir, please don't touch me." "Don't be like that," he said, reaching for her again. "I'm giving you a nice tip, least you can do is be friendly." Before Paige could respond, a hand clamped down on the man's wrist. Julian had appeared out of nowhere, his grip making the businessman wince. "She asked you not to touch her," Julian said quietly, too quietly. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. "Who the hell are you?" The businessman blustered, trying to pull his hand free. Julian didn't let go. "Someone who doesn't like men who can't take no for an answer." The man's friends started to stand, but one look from Julian's 2 companions had them sitting back down. The businessman's face went from red to pale. "Look, I didn't mean anything by it, I was just—" "Apologize to her," Julian said. "Now." "I'm sorry," the man said immediately, looking at Paige. "I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable." Julian released him and turned to the manager, who'd rushed over looking panicked. "These gentlemen are leaving, now." The manager nodded frantically. Within minutes, the men were escorted out. The entire interaction had taken less than 2 minutes, but Paige felt like the air had changed. She found Julian in the hallway leading to the kitchen. "Thank you," she said. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." Something in his eyes softened just slightly. "No one touches you without permission." The possessiveness in that statement should have alarmed her. Instead, it sent heat through her chest. "I can handle drunk customers," Paige said, needing to establish she wasn't helpless. "I know you can," Julian replied. "I've watched you handle worse, but you shouldn't have to." She studied him, really looked at him. Past the expensive suit and the dangerous edge, there was something else there, something lonely. "Who are you, really?" Paige asked. "Someone you should probably stay away from." But he didn't walk away. Neither did she. That's how it started. Not with flowers or dinner dates, but with truth. Julian told her things, late nights when the restaurant was closing and she'd find him waiting by her bus stop. He told her about growing up in Moscow, about losing his parents young, about the choices that led him into a world where power was the only currency that mattered. He didn't sugarcoat it. He ran operations in the city, import-export businesses that were legal on paper and dangerous in reality. He had enemies. He had blood on his hands. He told her all of it, giving her every reason to run. Paige listened, and against all logic, she stayed, because between the darkness, she saw something else. The way he made sure she got home safe. The way he remembered that she was taking night classes in graphic design. The way he asked about her mother in Detroit, her younger brother trying to stay out of trouble. The way he looked at her like she was something precious in a world that had forgotten the meaning of the word. "You're going to break my heart," Paige told him one night, 2 months in. They were sitting in his car outside her apartment building. Rain streaked the windows. Julian turned to face her, and for once his expression was completely unguarded. "I'm going to try not to," he said. "But I'm not a good man, Paige. I've done things." "I know," she interrupted. "You think I don't know? I'm not stupid, Julian. I know exactly what you are." "Then why are you still here?" She could have given him a dozen reasons. The way he made her feel safe. The way he listened when she talked. The way his presence filled a loneliness she'd been carrying for years. But she settled on the simplest truth. "Because when I look at you, I see someone who's tired of being alone." Something cracked in his expression. He reached for her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "I am," he said quietly. "So tired." That's when Paige knew she was in too deep to turn back. Everything changed 3 months in. Paige arrived for her evening shift to find the restaurant in chaos. Police cars outside, yellow tape. Someone had been killed in the hotel above, a businessman with ties to organized crime. The entire building was shut down. No shifts, no pay. And Paige, who'd been living paycheck to paycheck, suddenly had nothing. She didn't call Julian. Pride, maybe, or fear that accepting his help would mean crossing a line she could never uncross. But word traveled fast in his world. He showed up at her apartment that night. "I heard what happened," he said when she opened the door. "I'm handling it," Paige said, even though she wasn't, even though she'd spent the last hour crying over her bank statement. "Let me help." "I don't need your money, Julian." "I'm not offering money." He stepped closer. "Come work for me. My businesses need someone with your skills, marketing, design. You said you were good with social media, digital presence. I need that. Legitimate work, Paige, clean money." She wanted to say no, wanted to maintain that separation between her world and his, but desperation made people flexible and rent was due in a week. "What kind of businesses?" she asked. "Property management. All legal, all documented. You'd be helping build brands, creating content, managing online presence. Nothing that would compromise you." Paige studied his face, searching for the lie. She didn't find one. "And if I say yes, what does that make me? Your employee, your girlfriend, your—" "It makes you someone I take care of," Julian said. "Someone I protect, someone I—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "Someone you what?" Paige pressed. "Someone The words hung between them, too big, too true. Paige felt her breath catch. "You can't," she whispered. "Too late." He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "I tried not to, believe me, I tried. You're the last person I should drag into my life, but I'm a selfish bastard, Paige, and I want you anyway." She should have said no, should have protected herself. Instead, she kissed him. It was the first time. Months of tension, of almost touches and loaded glances, all crashing into that single moment. Julian kissed her back like she was air and he'd been drowning, like she was the first good thing he'd touched in years. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Paige knew there was no going back. "I'll take the job," she said, "but I have rules." "Name them." "You keep me out of anything illegal. You don't use me as leverage or collateral. And if I ever say I'm done." "Agreed," Julian said without hesitation. "And my rule, which is, you come to me if you're ever in trouble, any trouble. No pride, no hesitation. You call me and I handle it." Paige nodded. She thought she understood what that meant. She didn't. Not yet. Working for Julian was surreal. His operations were a maze of legitimate businesses fronting for power structures Paige only half understood. She worked out of a luxury office in a building he owned, creating social media strategies for nightclubs, designing websites for restaurants. The work was real. The money was clean. But she couldn't ignore the undercurrent. The men who came in for meetings, speaking in languages she didn't know. The phone calls Julian took behind closed doors. The way his security detail doubled whenever they left the building together. She existed in this strange space between two. Working professional by day, girlfriend of one of the city's most dangerous men by night. Julian kept his promise. He never directly involved her in anything questionable. But proximity alone was its own kind of danger. Paige started recognizing faces, learning which associates were trustworthy and which ones made Julian's jaw tighten, understanding that certain phone calls meant he'd be gone for days, and she'd spend that time barely sleeping, wondering if he was. "You're losing weight," her mother said over video chat. "Are you eating enough?" "I'm fine, Mom, just busy with the new job." "This man you're seeing, Julian, is he good to you?" Paige thought about how Julian made sure she never walked anywhere alone, how he had food delivered when she worked late, how he held her through nightmares she wouldn't talk about. "He's good to me," Paige said. It was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The breaking point came on a Friday night. Paige was working late at one of Julian's nightclubs, doing a final check of the new promotional materials. The club was between shifts, mostly empty except for staff. She was in the back office when she heard raised voices. Through the door, she saw 3 men she didn't recognize. One of them grabbed a bartender, demanding to know where Julian was. This wasn't a social call. Paige's hand went to her phone, but before she could dial, the office door opened. One of the men stood there, gun visible in his waistband. "You work for Markovsky?" he asked in heavily accented English. Paige's training kicked in. The training she'd learned from watching Julian, from understanding how his world operated. Stay calm, don't show fear. "I do marketing," she said evenly. "I don't know anything about his other business." "You're the girlfriend." It wasn't a question. Her silence was answer enough. "Good," the man said. "Then you're coming with us." Paige thought fast. She had maybe 3 seconds before this became irreversible. "If you take me, he'll kill you," she said quietly. "All of you, you know that, right?" The man smiled. It wasn't pleasant. "That's what we're counting on, him coming for you." They'd planned this. They wanted Julian off balance, emotional, making mistakes. And Paige was the bait. Before she could say anything else, the man grabbed her arm. That's when everything went dark and loud simultaneously. Lights cut out. Gunfire erupted. Paige dropped to the floor, heart hammering. Someone pulled her backwards, shielding her body with theirs. When the lights came back on seconds later, 2 of the men were down. The third was pinned against the wall by Dmitri, Julian's head of security, and Julian stood in the doorway, gun in hand, face absolutely expressionless in that way that meant someone was about to die. His eyes found Paige on the floor. For 1 second, pure terror crossed. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. "Get her out of here," he told Dmitri. "Now." "Julian," Paige started. "Now," he repeated, not looking at her, because if he looked at her, he might lose the control he needed. Dmitri got her out. She spent the next 6 hours in one of Julian's safe houses, surrounded by security, not knowing what was happening. When Julian finally walked through the door at dawn, there was blood on his knuckles. He looked at Paige sitting on the couch, still in her work clothes, still shaking slightly. "Are you hurt?" he asked. His voice was raw. "No, they didn't." "Are you hurt?" "No," Paige said clearly. Julian closed his eyes, shoulders sagging. Then he crossed the room and pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair. "I'm so sorry. I should have protected you better. I should have." "I'm okay," Paige interrupted. "I'm okay." But they both knew that wasn't true. Not really. This had been a warning, a demonstration of vulnerability, and in Julian's world, vulnerability meant death. "I have to send you away," Julian said, pulling back. "Somewhere safe, out of the city. I have a place in." "No." "Paige, no," she repeated firmly. "You don't get to make that decision for me. They tried to take you." His voice cracked. "They were going to use you to destroy me, and they will try again." "Then you teach me," Paige said. "Teach me how to protect myself. Teach me what I need to know to survive in your world, but don't send me away." "You want to stay." He looked at her like she'd lost her mind. In this, knowing what almost happened. "I want to stay with you," Paige corrected. "There's a difference." Julian stared at her for a long moment. "You're the bravest person I've ever met," he said finally. "Or the most foolish. Maybe both." touched his face, making him meet her eyes. I knew what I was getting into, maybe not all the details, but I knew I chose this, I chose you. I don't deserve you. Probably not, Paige agreed, but you have me anyway. That night, Julian held her while she slept, and for the first time in his adult life, he prayed, to a God he didn't believe in, praying that loving this woman wouldn't be what got her killed. The next 3 months were a crash course in survival. Julian taught Paige how to read people, how to spot threats, how to disappear if she needed to. He showed her the safe houses, the escape routes, the people she could trust. Dimitri taught her basic self-defense, not enough to win a fight, but enough to buy time. The goal is never to fight, Dimitri explained. The goal is to survive until help arrives. And if help doesn't arrive, Paige asked, then you use what you learned and you don't hesitate. It was a strange kind of intimacy, learning to survive in Julian's world. Paige started understanding the weight he carried, the constant calculations, the knowledge that one wrong move could end lives. How do you live like this? She asked one night. They were in his penthouse, the city lights spread below them. How do you carry all this weight? I don't, Julian said quietly. I survive it, there's a difference. He turned to her. But with you here, it feels less heavy. Like maybe there's more to life than just surviving. Paige moved closer, fitting herself against his side. Tell me something true, something you've never told anyone. Julian was silent for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When I was 14, he finally said, I watched my father die, execution style in front of our family, because he'd shown mercy to the wrong person. Paige's breath caught. Julian, I learned that day that mercy is weakness in my world. That love makes you vulnerable, that caring about anything or anyone gives your enemies a target. He looked down at her. I've spent 20 years building walls to protect myself, and then you spilled coffee on my shoes and smiled at me like I was a regular person, and all those walls started cracking. I'm not trying to fix you, Paige said. I know who you are, I know what you've done, I'm not here to save you. Then why are you here? Because I love you, she said simply. Broken walls and all. Julian kissed her then, slow and deep and desperate, like she was salvation and damnation all at once. The peace didn't last, it never did. 2 weeks later, Paige was at the penthouse when Julian came home early. One look at his face told her something was very wrong. What happened? She asked. Alexei, Julian said. My second in command. He's been feeding information to the Volkov family. Everything they knew, every move they've made. He gave it to them. Worst kind, Paige felt cold. What are you going to do? What I have to do. Julian's voice was empty. He knows too much, he's a liability I can't afford. You're going to kill him. It wasn't a question. Yes, he met her eyes. And I need you to understand why. It's not about revenge, it's about survival. If I show weakness now, if I let this slide, I won't last a month. Everyone will think I'm soft. Paige felt sick. She'd known this was part of his work. Having it laid out so starkly was different. Where is he now? Safe house, secured, I'm handling it tomorrow night. And you're telling me this because I don't want secrets between us, Julian said. I won't involve you, you'll be nowhere near it, but I need you to know who I am, what I do, if you can't accept this. I can accept it, Paige interrupted. I don't like it, but I understand why it has to happen. Julian looked at her for a long moment. Most people would have run by now. I'm not most people. No, he agreed, you're really not. The next day passed in tense silence. Paige tried to work, tried to focus, but her mind kept returning to what was going to happen. To Alexei, who she'd met a dozen times, who'd always been polite, friendly even. That evening, as Julian was preparing to leave, Paige stopped him. Come back to me, she said. He pulled her close. Always. Promise me. I promise. No matter what happens, I come back to you. He kept that promise, but the man who returned was haunted. Paige found him hours later, sitting in the dark, staring at nothing. She didn't ask what happened, didn't need to. She just sat beside him, taking his hand. He begged, Julian said quietly. At the end, begged for mercy, reminded me we grew up together, that his family and mine went back decades. I'm sorry, Paige said. I killed him anyway. His voice was hollow. 'Cause that's who I am, that's what I do. That's what you have to do, Paige corrected. There's a difference. Is there? He finally looked at her. How are you here? How can you sit next to me knowing what I just did? Because I know it's killing you, Paige said. Because you're not a monster, Julian. Monsters don't feel remorse. They don't come home haunted. You should leave me. Probably. She rested her head on his shoulder. But I won't. They sat in the dark for a long time. And Paige realized this was what love looked like in their world. Not flowers and romance, but being present in the darkness, holding on when everything said to let go. The aftermath of Alexei's betrayal rippled through the organization. Loyalties were tested, new alliances formed, and Julian spent weeks shoring up his position, making sure everyone understood that treachery had consequences. Through it all, Paige was his anchor, the one constant in the chaos. She learned to read his moods, to know when he needed space and when he needed her close. She learned the language of his world, the subtle hierarchies, the unspoken rules. She became someone his associates respected because Julian's protection extended to her like a shield. But respect and safety weren't the same thing. That lesson came hard. Paige was leaving one of Julian's restaurants late one evening when a car pulled up. Not his security. Not anyone she recognized. Before she could react, someone grabbed her from behind. This time she remembered her training. She slammed her elbow back, felt it connect, twisted hard, broke free and ran. She made it half a block before they caught her. But that half block was enough. Security cameras, witnesses, evidence. They couldn't disappear her quietly now. "Smart girl," one of them said, shoving her into the car. "Won't matter, we're still taking you." But it did matter. Because 20 minutes later, when they were still trying to figure out where to take her, the car was surrounded. Julian's people. Dimitri in front, face set in stone. The men holding Paige realized they'd made a fatal mistake. They let her go, tried to negotiate, but Julian was already there, gun in hand, and Paige saw in his eyes that negotiation wasn't on the table. "Close your eyes," Dimitri told Paige gently. She did. The sound of gunfire was muffled through the car windows, but she heard it anyway, heard everything. When Dimitri opened the door, Julian was right there, pulling her out, checking her for injuries. "Did they hurt you?" His hands were shaking. "Did they?" "I'm okay," Paige said. "I got away, I ran just like you taught me." "You ran," Julian repeated, something like pride mixed with terror in his expression. "Jesus Christ, Paige, you could have been killed." "But I wasn't." Pulled her against him, and Paige felt how fast his heart was beating. How close he'd come to losing control. "This can't keep happening," Julian said. "Every few months someone tries to use you against me. I can't," his voice broke. "I can't keep almost losing you." "Then we deal with it," Paige said. "Permanently, you said you have enemies. Fine, handle them, but don't push me away because you're scared." "I'm terrified," he admitted. "I've never been this scared." "Good," Paige said. "Fear means you care. Fear means this matters." "You matter." He cupped her face. "More than anything in this world, you matter." That night, everything changed. Julian made calls, called in favors, set things in motion that would reshape his entire organization. He was consolidating power, eliminating threats, building something more legitimate, something sustainable. "I'm getting out," he told Paige. "Not all at once, can't do it that way, but gradually. 5 years, maybe less. I'm building legitimate businesses, distancing from the dangerous parts." "Why now?" Paige asked. "Because I want a future," Julian said. "A real one with you, and that can't happen if I'm constantly looking over my shoulder, if I'm putting you in danger just by loving you. I never asked you to change." "I know, but I want to. For the first time in my life, I want something more than power." The transition wasn't smooth. There were setbacks, challenges, moments when it seemed impossible. But Julian was methodical, strategic. He'd spent years building his empire. He knew how to dismantle it just as carefully. Paige watched him transform, not into someone different, but into someone more complete. The dangerous edge was still there. That would never fully disappear. But he smiled more, relaxed occasionally. Started talking about the future like it was something real, not just a concept. "I bought a house," he told her one evening, 8 months after that last kidnapping attempt. "Outside the city, private, secure, but normal, with a yard." "A yard," Paige repeated, smiling. "What are you going to do with a yard?" "I don't know," Julian admitted, "but I thought maybe we could figure it out together." He pulled out a key, held it out to her. "Move in with me, properly, not the penthouse, not a safe house, a home." Paige took the key. It was warm from his pocket, solid and real in her palm. "Is this you asking me to build a life with you?" "This is me begging," Julian said. "I know I can't offer you normal. I'll always have a past. There will always be people who remember what I was, who I worked for. But I can offer you truth, protection, and love. So much love it terrifies me." Paige looked at this man who'd entered her life through spilled coffee and chaos. Who'd shown her darkness and danger, but also loyalty and devotion beyond anything she'd known. Who was trying to build something better because of her. "Yes," she said. "Yes to the house. Yes to building a life. Yes to all of it." Julian's smile was like sunrise, rare and beautiful and worth every moment of darkness that came before. He kissed her, and Paige tasted possibility. They moved into the house 3 weeks later. It was strange at first, playing at domestic. Julian cooking breakfast in a kitchen that was actually theirs. Paige working from a home office instead of a corporate suite. Dimitri and security still present but less intrusive, more like cautious neighbors than constant shadows. "This feels normal," Paige said one morning, watching Julian struggle with the coffee maker. "I don't trust it." "Neither do I," Julian admitted. "I keep waiting for something to go wrong. Maybe nothing will. Maybe." He finally got the coffee working, poured them both cups. Or maybe this is what happy looks like and we're just too used to survival to recognize it. Paige thought about that, about how far they'd both come, from spilled coffee and dangerous glances to this. Quiet mornings and shared space, building something real from violence and risk. "I love you," she said. Julian looked at her, and his expression was unguarded, vulnerable in a way he never was with anyone else. "I love you more than I thought I was capable of loving anything," he said. "You saved me, Paige, from myself, from this life, from becoming something completely cold." "We saved each other," Paige corrected. "You taught me I was stronger than I thought, braver, that I could face darkness and come out whole." "Are we whole?" Julian asked. "Or just really good at pretending?" "Maybe both," she smiled. "Maybe that's enough." Outside, the city continued its chaos. Power struggles and danger, the world Julian was slowly extracting himself from. But in this house, in this moment, they were safe. And that was something. Not a fairy tale. Not a promise that everything would be perfect. But a choice to build something better, to love despite the cost. To believe that people could change, could grow, could become more than their worst moments. 3 years later, Paige stood in their kitchen, now completely comfortable with the coffee maker, watching morning light paint the walls gold. Julian had succeeded. He'd transitioned his businesses, distanced himself from the dangerous elements. He still had power, still had connections. You didn't just walk away from that life completely, but he'd built something legitimate, something sustainable. The house had a yard now, like he'd promised. Paige had planted flowers. Julian pretended not to care, but she'd caught him watering them when he thought she wasn't looking. They had a life. Strange and complicated and built on a foundation most people couldn't understand. But it was theirs, and it was enough. Sometimes, late at night, Paige thought about the girl she'd been, working a restaurant, serving coffee, dreaming small dreams. She'd spilled coffee on a stranger's shoes and changed everything. She didn't regret it. Not the danger, not the fear, not the moments when she'd questioned everything, because all of it led here, to mornings with Julian, to a love that had been tested and survived, to understanding that happy endings didn't mean perfection. They just meant choosing each other again and again through everything. "What are you thinking about?" Julian asked, coming up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. "How I spilled coffee on you," Paige said. "Best accident I ever made." "Best accident that ever happened to me," Julian agreed. He turned her to face him. "Thank you for staying." "Thank you for letting me," Paige replied. They stood in their kitchen, in their house, in the life they'd built from danger and choice and stubborn love. It wasn't perfect. Julian still had nightmares. Paige still checked locks twice. They still had security, still had protocols. But they also had this. Each other, and that was everything. Hey there, beautiful souls. If you made it all the way to the end of Paige and Julian's story, thank you. Truly. I know it's a lot. This world of danger wrapped in devotion, of darkness finding light. But that's what drew me to write it. The idea that love isn't always soft and easy. Sometimes it's fierce and complicated and asks more of us than we thought we could give. Paige and Julian's journey isn't about fixing each other or finding perfection. It's about two people choosing each other despite about finding safety in the most unexpected places, about building something real from very broken pieces. I wanted to explore what happens when someone from a normal life meets someone whose life is anything, but how do you navigate that? How do you love someone when their past is dark and their present is dangerous? The answer, I think, is carefully, honestly, with eyes wide open. I hope Julian felt real to you, not just a powerful figure, but someone trying to be better because of love. And Paige, I wanted her strong but not superhuman, scared but not paralyzed, making choices that might seem crazy from the outside but made perfect sense to her heart. Their story doesn't end with everything perfect because that wouldn't be honest. It ends with them still choosing each other, still building their life, still navigating a world that's complicated. And honestly, I think that's more romantic than any fairy tale. So tell me, what did you think? Did their connection feel real to you? Were there moments that got you? I love hearing what resonates with people, what moments stuck with you, what feelings this brought up. Drop a comment if you're comfortable sharing. I read every single one, and your thoughts mean more than you know. And if you enjoyed this story, if it moves something in you, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps more people find these stories. and it lets me know you. I have so many more stories to tell, different characters, different dynamics, but always that same core of complicated, fierce, choose-you-anyway love. Thank you again for being here, for letting me share Paige and Julian with you, for investing your time in their journey. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Love hard, choose bravely, and remember that your story is still being written. All my love.